I woke up to a stranger's hand wrapped around mine, except she wasn't really a stranger. She was my girlfriend's little sister. The first thing I saw was the ceiling tile with the water stain shaped like Florida. The second thing I saw was Emma Coleman, sitting in a plastic chair that was too small for her, gripping my hand like it was the only thing keeping the room from tipping over. "Hey," she said, her voice cracking on one syllable. Hey, you're okay." I blinked at her. My mouth tasted like a dry sponge. "Emma? Don't sound so surprised. I clean up nice in a waiting room." I tried to sit up, and the IV line pulled at my arm, and a monitor somewhere started chirping like it had an opinion about my life choice. "Where's Danielle?" Her face did something complicated. It went still, then careful. Then she looked at the door the way people look at exits there. "She's around," Emma said. "Around isn't a location. Mark, you just collapsed at mile 8. You should be worried about your electrolytes, not your girlfriend's whereabouts. I can multitask. I'm very talented." A nurse walked in before she could dodge again. She checked my pulse, asked me my name, asked if I knew what day it was, and told me I'd fainted near the final water station of the Race for Grace, the memorial run the Coleman family organized every year for their grandmother. Heat, dehydration, low blood sugar, maybe more. They wanted to keep me overnight for observation. "You're lucky someone caught you before you hit the pavement," she said. "Someone," I repeated, looking at Emma. "I was 2 people behind you in the pack," she said. "Lucky spacing." The nurse left. I turned back to Emma. "Where is she? Emma, for real?" She rubbed the back of her neck. "There was a dinner after the race. Some of Dad's clients came out for it, and Danielle said she'd swing by the hospital after. After the dinner, she chose over the ambulance. I didn't say it was a good choice. You didn't have to." She didn't argue with that. She just reached over and adjusted the blanket at my shoulder like it needed adjusting, like her hands needed something to do that wasn't answering the actual question sitting in the room with us. By the next morning, Emma was still there, arguing quietly with a vending machine that had eaten her dollar and given her nothing back. "You spent the night in a hospital fighting a snack machine," I said. "This is the most heroic thing you've ever done. I got you real food too." She held up a paper bag. "Not the beige mystery casserole they tried to serve you at 6 a.m. You didn't have to stay. I know. Your own bed exists. It has your name on it. Probably. Mark." She sat down slower this time, like the joke had run out. "I called in sick to work. I'm not going anywhere until they tell me you're actually fine." I looked at the empty second chair by the window, the one nobody had sat in. "Did Danielle call?" Emma's jaw tightened. She texted. "What did it say?" She hesitated, then handed me her phone instead of mine, because apparently my own phone had become a hazardous object nobody wanted to hand me directly. The message was 3 words long. "Glad or okay." I read it twice, like the second reading might reveal something the first one missed. It didn't. "That's it?" "That's it. No call." "No, I'm coming. Just glad you're not dead. Cool. Moving on." "I didn't send it," Emma said quietly. "I just have to watch you read it." "That's worse, actually." "Yeah," I figured. By day 2, I knew the nurse's shift schedule better than my own work calendar, and I knew Emma had a very specific way of avoiding questions. She'd suddenly become extremely interested in refilling my water cup. "I'm asking today," I told her, when she set a bagel down on my tray like a peace offering. "Eat first." "No. I'm done trading answers for carbs." She sighed and sat at the foot of the bed, elbows on her knees. "When you went down, everyone panicked. Danielle panicked the loudest, actually for about 4 minutes. And then Frank Coleman Sr. showed up, Dad's biggest client. The one Danielle's been chasing for the listing on that whole lakefront development. During a memorial run for your grandmother. Our family's very good at multitasking tragedy and business. It's a skill." She picked at the paper bag. "Danielle said the ambulance had it handled and that leaving right when Frank showed up would look." Her word. Unprofessional. I stared at the ceiling stain shaped like Florida again. It felt like a safer place to look. She thought a client dinner mattered more than me on a stretcher. She thought it wouldn't matter because I was already following the ambulance. Emma's voice had an edge now, the first one I'd heard from her. She said, and I'm quoting, "He'll be fine. Emma's got it." She handed me off. "She handed you off." I laughed, but it wasn't a real laugh. More like something escaping because it had nowhere else to go. That's efficient of her. Don't do that. Do what? Make it a joke so it doesn't have to be a problem. Emma looked at me directly, which she hadn't really done yet, not like this. "It's a problem, Mark." That was the first time anyone had said it plainly. I sat with it for a second. The way you sit with a bruise you didn't know you had until someone presses on it. "I need to call her," I said. "Alone." Emma nodded once, stood, and said she'd get air. At the door, she turned back. "For what it's worth, I wasn't following the ambulance because she told me to. She left before I could ask what she meant by that. Danielle picked up on the fourth ring, sounding distracted, like I'd interrupted something more interesting than my own hospitalization. Hey, you good? They're keeping me one more night. Seems dramatic for heat exhaustion. I sat up straighter, and the IV line pulled again. Danielle, why weren't you here? A pause. Are we really doing this over the phone? Yes. I had Frank Coleman in front of me. You know what that listing means for the firm? For my dad's whole legacy thing. I couldn't just bail. I collapsed on a race course. And Emma had it. That's literally why I have a sister, Mark. Something in my chest went very cold and very clear at the same time. That's why you have a sister? To cover for you? That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. You're being intense right now. I woke up in urgent care, and the first thing I felt was relief that someone showed up, and it wasn't you. Do you understand how that sounds? It sounds like you're making this about optics instead of being grateful nobody died. There it was, the line, the one that would replay in my head for weeks afterward. You think I should be grateful, I said slowly, that you let your sister clean up after you so you could keep a client happy. I think you're twisting a bad night into a referendum on us. No, Danielle. I'm finally reading the referendum you've been running for months. Mark, we're done. Don't be ridiculous. You're on painkillers. I'm on clarity, actually. It's a new sensation. I recommend it. I hung up. My hand was shaking, not from anger exactly, more like the aftershock of finally saying a true thing out loud. Then I blocked her number, because apparently that's what closure looked like now. A little red icon and a lot of silence. Emma came back 20 minutes later holding 2 coffees she probably didn't want either. You did it, she said, reading my face. I did it. You okay? No. But it's an honest no, so that's something. She sat down beside me and didn't say Danielle deserved it, didn't make it about herself, didn't fill the silence with anything performative. She just stayed, and it mattered more than I wanted it to. Discharge day involved a wheelchair I insisted I didn't need, and a nurse who insisted I did. Emma pushed it anyway, grinning the entire time. Hospital policy. You're technically fragile. I ran 8 miles yesterday. You collapsed after 7.5 of them. Different category. She drove me home in her beat-up hatchback that smelled like guitar strings and gas station coffee, and carried my bag up 2 flights even after I told her 3 times I could. Inside my apartment, she glanced at the sink full of dishes and the mail avalanche on the counter and said nothing, which somehow said everything. Don't judge my kitchen, I told her. I would never. I'm simply cataloging it internally. That's worse. Do you have actual food? Or just aspirational yogurt? I have crackers, Mark, and eggs. Sometimes. She opened my fridge, surveyed the wreckage, and shut it with the calm resignation of a woman closing a crime scene. Let me take you to dinner. Once you're cleared. As a thank you, before you argue. I studied her. You do know I'm technically your sister's ex now. I noticed. This could get strange. It's already strange. I spent 2 nights in a hospital chair for a man who wasn't dating me. She shrugged, but her ears had gone a little red. One dinner. Public place. You can insult my music taste for closure. I told myself it was gratitude. I mostly believed it. The restaurant was small, the kind with good burgers and booths that had absorbed a decade of other people's conversations. I wore something nicer than I needed to for a thank you dinner, and when Emma showed up in a dress that actually suited her, I noticed her the way you notice weather changing, quietly and all at once. We talked about easy things first. Her work mixing sound for a local concert venue, the touring bands who tipped well and the ones who didn't. My job coordinating weddings at a downtown hotel, and the groom last spring who cried more than the bride. Sounds emotionally exhausting, she said. You'd know. You've spent a week absorbing my emotional exhaustion. Occupational hazard of being the reliable sister. That landed differently than she probably meant it to. The plates got cleared and neither of us moved to leave, and eventually she set her glass down and got serious. I need to say something, she said. I don't want you confusing gratitude for something bigger just because I showed up, noted. And I don't want to be convenient. The woman who happened to be standing there when things fell apart. You weren't just standing there. You stayed. I know. That's the part I can't stop thinking about. She met my eyes. I've had more honest conversations with you in a week than Danielle probably had with you in months. That's not a high bar. No, but it's still true, she exhaled. My family would lose it. Danielle would lose it worse. Probably. So what are we saying here? I sat back and let myself actually think about it. Instead of managing the moment the way I'd learned to manage every uncomfortable moment with Dan, softening it, shrinking it, making it easy for someone else. I'm saying I like sitting across from you. I noticed you tonight in a way I wasn't expecting. I'm not going to pretend I didn't. But I'm also not asking you to step into a mess just because I had a bad week. She laughed a little. That was annoyingly reasonable. I have moments. We split the check, mostly because she grabbed it before I could argue, and stood by her car afterward, not quite ready to leave and not quite sure what leaving looked like anymore. This is where one of us says we shouldn't do this. Do what? She gave me a look. I held up both hands. I just got cleared by a doctor. Be gentle. Good night, Mark. Good night, Emma. She got 2 steps toward her door, then turned back. For the record, if you ask me to dinner again, don't call it a thank you. She texted first the next morning. Still alive? Barely. Fridge situation critical. Eat something that isn't crackers. Coffee counts as a food group, right? Do you want me to come confiscate it? I smiled at my phone like an idiot and set it face down, which fooled absolutely no one, especially not me. For the next month, we found reasons. She dropped off soup because I probably forgot lunch. I met her for coffee because I needed the walk. She came by on a Thursday to make sure I hadn't gone back to running too soon, and I threatened to start billing her for service. Your security's terrible, she said, letting herself in with a takeout bag. Your neighbor let me up because I had food. Mrs. Okafor likes anyone with dumplings. I should really move. You won't. You like that she knows everyone's business. We ate at my small kitchen table, knees bumping once, then again, and neither of us moved away the second time. You keep doing that, she said. I was here first. Documented history. Bold claim. Danielle had tried calling from a different number twice by then. I hadn't answered either time. Her parents knew Emma had helped after the hospital, but they didn't know coffee had turned into something that lived in the space between friendship and everything else. One night, parked outside my building because neither of us wanted the night to end yet, Emma finally said what had clearly been sitting in her for a while. This feels like hiding. It is hiding. I hate hiding. Me too. I looked at her. Can I ask you something? Always. Am I just a way to feel better after Danielle? Because if this is about proving something to yourself about being the better sister, I need to know now. She didn't answer fast, which I appreciated, because fast would have meant she hadn't actually thought about it. I've asked myself that, she said finally, more than once. And the answer is no. I'm not trying to win some competition with my sister. I'm scared of becoming the villain in everyone's version of this story, though. I'm scared my mom's gonna look at me like I broke a rule nobody wrote down. You didn't take anything from anyone. She left. You stayed. I know the facts. Living with people's reactions to the facts is a different job entirely. She looked at her hands on the wheel. I don't want to drag you into a family mess. You don't get to decide that alone. I'm not trying to. You kind of are, though. Deciding for both of us what I can and can't handle. Fair. She exhaled slowly, like she was setting something down she'd been carrying since the hospital. I'm not used to being the one who stays instead of the one who gets left behind to explain things. It's a strange seat to sit in. You're doing fine in it. I don't want to be treated like a temporary rescue, either, she added, quieter. If this ends the second things get complicated with my family, I need to know that now, not after I've told my mother. It's not going to end because it gets complicated. It might end if you keep deciding things for me without asking. That's the only version where I walk away. She reached across the console and took my hand. Not fast, not dramatic. I let her. I want you. Not because you were there when I woke up. Not just because you were kind, though that matters. I want you because when I'm with you, I don't feel like I have to manage the room to earn basic respect. Her thumb moved once against my hand. That's a lot for a parked car. I can move to a conference room if that helps. She laughed quietly and wiped one eye before the tear could fall. A week later, we were sorting through the last of what Danielle had left at my place. A jacket, a phone charger, a coffee mug she never washed, when the kiss finally happened. I was folding the jacket into a donation bag, moving fast, the way you move when you're trying to outrun a feeling. You don't have to do that today, Emma said. I do. I'm tired of opening drawers and getting ambushed by my own past. You could just throw it out. I'm not starting a war over a mug. Diplomatic. I retired from diplomacy the day I blocked her number. She stepped closer, arms crossed, studying me. Sometimes I think you're still trying to make this painless for everyone else. Is that a bad thing? It is if it makes you disappear. She said it gently, but it landed exactly where it was aimed. I already feel like a secret sometimes, Mark. That one hurt because she wasn't accusing me, just telling me the truth and letting me hold it. Then we stop hiding. Not with fireworks. We tell people. Starting with your parents, and if it gets ugly, then it gets ugly with both of us standing there. She looked at me for a long moment, then closed the distance and kissed me. Careful at first, like she was giving me every chance to step back, and then not careful at all, the way honesty stops being careful once it finally gets to exist out loud. When she pulled back, she looked equal parts relieved and terrified. Well, that was a terrible idea. Awful. We should never do that again. She kissed me a second time instead of answering. Her parents, Linda and Frank Coleman, lived in a colonial 2 towns over, the kind of house I'd sat in a dozen times as Danielle's boyfriend. Walking up that same path, holding Emma's hand, felt like stepping into a room where the furniture had all been quietly rearranged. Linda opened the door and her eyes dropped to our joined hands before she said a single word. "Oh," she said. That was the whole greeting. Frank came in from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dish towel. "Mark, Emma, everything okay? Can we sit down?" Emma asked. We sat. I let her talk first. "Mark and I are together," she said. "It started after the hospital." Not before. Nothing happened before Danielle and Mark ended things. Linda's face went very still. "How long has this been going on?" "A few weeks as a couple. A month, total, since I stayed with him." Frank leaned back into the couch cushions like he needed the extra support. "Does your sister know?" "Not yet. She's gonna be furious," Linda said. "She left him unconscious to keep a business dinner going," Emma said, and her voice shook slightly but didn't stop. "I'm done pretending that's a small thing so everyone stays comfortable." Linda pressed her fingers to her mouth. "Are you sure this isn't just intensity because of the accident?" "I asked myself that," I said. "More than once. I'm sure enough to stop hiding it." Frank turned to me. "And you? What do you want out of this?" "I want to be with someone who shows up," I said. "I'm not here to punish Danielle, and I'm not here because I was lonely and Emma was kind. I'm here because she matters to me, and I'll deal with whatever that costs." Frank nodded slowly. Linda looked at her hands. "I don't know how to feel yet," she admitted. "That's okay," Emma said. "I'm not asking you to clap." Frank's mouth twitched despite himself. We left without a blessing, but also without the door slamming behind us. And in that house, that counted as progress. Danielle found out the next day, not from us. Linda told her first, probably hoping to soften it, which it did not. Emma called me from the parking lot outside my building, voice tight. "She's here." By the time I got downstairs, Danielle was standing near the entrance with her arms crossed. A coworker named Nadia from her office sitting in the idling car, pretending not to watch and absolutely watching. "Unbelievable," Danielle said when she saw me. "You actually did this." I stopped beside Emma. "Danielle, my own sister," she pointed at Emma. "Really?" "This is between all 3 of us now," Emma said. "No, you don't get to act innocent," Danielle snapped. "You were circling before I even left the picture. I stayed with him in a hospital because you couldn't be bothered to," Emma shot back. "That's not circling. That's the bare minimum you skipped." Danielle's eyes cut to me. "You think she actually chose you? Or is this just about hurting me?" I felt something steady settle into my spine, the same clarity I'd found on that phone call weeks ago. "I'm choosing someone who shows up, Danielle. That's not a message to you. That's just true. You'll regret this." "Maybe," I said, "but not because I finally listened to myself." She looked at me a beat longer, like she expected the ground to argue her case for her. It didn't. "You'll get bored of playing the reformed sister," she told Emma, then turned and got into the car. Nadia wouldn't meet my eyes as they pulled away too fast, then corrected. Emma stood very still beside me. "That could have gone worse," she said finally. "It could have gone better." Welcome to my family. The week after was ugly in the specific way that only people who technically know each other can be ugly. Danielle posted vague things online about loyalty and being blindsided. A cousin called Emma and said, "I'm not judging, but it looks bad," which is what people say right before they judge. Someone from the race committee, who'd apparently heard a secondhand version through 3 other people, sent Emma a message asking if it was true she'd swooped in while I was still hooked up to monitors, as if she'd proposed at my bedside instead of just staying in a chair. "Swooped," Emma repeated, staring at her phone like it had personally offended her. "I brought you a bagel and argued with a vending machine. That's not a swoop. That's barely a shuffle. Tell them that." I'm not explaining myself to a woman I've met twice at a fun run. Even people who liked us seem to need a script to follow. Some official permission to stop treating it like gossip and start treating it like something that had actually happened to real people. My coworker Priya walked into my office break room and said, "So apparently you're a scandal now." Which version am I hearing? That you left the hospital and immediately ran off with your ex's sister like a soap opera plot. Pacing's off. I was in the hospital for 3 days first. She sat down across from me. "What actually happened?" I told her. All of it. The dinner, the ambulance, the text, the phone call, the blocked number, the months after. She was quiet for a second, then said, "You should tell people that version, not let her version win by default." That night, Emma and I wrote one message together and sent it to the people whose opinions actually matter. Her parents, our closest friends, a couple of relatives who kept fishing for details. Mark was hospitalized after collapsing during the race for grace. Danielle chose to stay at a client dinner instead of coming. Emma stayed with him the entire time. Mark and Danielle ended their relationship afterward. Weeks later, Mark and Emma began seeing each other. We understand this is a lot to process, but we won't accept a false version of what happened. Emma read it 3 times before hitting send. "This feels cold," she said. "It's clear. People can judge us with the right information. You really don't care what they think?" "I care. I'm just done paying extra for it." The first reply came from Frank. "I was at that dinner table. You both have my support." Emma's eyes went glassy, reading it. Then Linda wrote, "I need time, but I know exactly what happened at that hospital. I love you both." "That's more than I expected," Emma admitted. "Take the win." After that, the story started turning. Not because we'd said anything brilliant, but because Danielle had been counting on everyone forgetting the parts she couldn't explain. They hadn't. An aunt who'd volunteered at the race's finish line called Linda and said plainly, "I watched her leave. Don't ask me to pretend otherwise." Nadia stopped answering Danielle's calls entirely, telling a mutual friend she wasn't getting dragged into whatever that was. A month after the parking lot, Emma stood in my kitchen holding a stack of her own folded laundry and said, "This is getting ridiculous." "The laundry?" "Us. Pretending we don't basically live together. I have a toothbrush here. Half my work shirts are in your closet. You know exactly how I take my coffee. And I know your smoke detector chirps at 3 a.m. for no reason. It has a personality. Mark." I set down the mug I was drying. "Move in," she blinked. "That was fast. You built the whole case. I'm just accepting the evidence. I want you here," she said, walking over, "not because we survived something loud. I want to come home and find you annoyed at my mixing equipment taking up the whole living room. I want your shoes by my door and mine to complain about my shoes by yours. That's oddly romantic for a woman who once made a joke about my crackers. I contain multitudes." She took my hands. "You're not a rebound. You're not a secret. You're not replacing anyone. You're just you. And I want a life with you in it." "Say the thing," I said, smiling. "What thing? You know the thing." She laughed, remembering the joke we'd built without meaning to, the one that had started the very first week. Back when I couldn't sit still in that hospital bed and she'd threatened, half serious, to count to 10 and physically hold me down if I tried to stand up again. It had become our shorthand ever since, for patience, for staying, for not bolting the second things got hard. "I'm not counting to 10 anymore," she said quietly. "I'm just staying." Good answer. "Move in with me, then. Or I move in with you. Logistics are negotiable." "Yes," I said, before she could overthink it. "Yes." Moving in wasn't cinematic. It was mismatched boxes, a missing roll of tape, and one long argument about whether her enormous secondhand mixing console counted as furniture or as a hazard. It stayed, mostly because I lost that argument and made my peace with it privately. Our life got quieter after that, in the best way. Linda visited more, eventually without stiff shoulders, and one Sunday she brought a casserole and stayed for 3 hours instead of 1. Near the end of dinner, she set her fork down and looked at me directly. "I handled the beginning of this badly," she said. "I kept hoping if I gave it enough silence, it would resolve itself without anyone having to be uncomfortable. That wasn't fair to either of you. Thank you for saying that." She reached over and, for the first time, didn't look away when she saw my hand find Emma's under the table. Danielle never came around to any of it, and that would have been too neat anyway. From what I heard through people who still talk to both of us, she lost more than she expected. Not because anyone campaigned against her, but because people got tired of being recruited into her version of events. She moved across town a few months later, telling people she needed a fresh start with people who actually understood her. I hope she found some. I hope, eventually, someone honest enough to tell her when she's wrong. Almost a year after the race, Emma and I hosted dinner in our apartment. Her parents came. My mom came. Priya from my office brought a store-bought pie she swore was basically homemade if you didn't examine the box too closely. At one point, I stepped into the hallway to take out the recycling, and when I came back, I saw Emma through the open doorway, laughing at something her father said, completely at ease, not performing for anyone, not standing carefully in anyone's shadow. Just there. Just home. She caught me watching. "What? Nothing. That was not nothing. You look happy," I said. "I am." She crossed the kitchen and took the plates out of my hands. "That's all it is." Later, after everyone left, we stood surrounded by dishes we were too tired to wash yet. "You know," she said, "when I was sitting in that hospital chair, I thought the best case outcome was that you'd be okay and never think about me twice. I turned off the faucet. And now you leave your cables all over my living room, so clearly I miscalculated something. That's devotion. That's evidence. I did notice you differently, I admitted, just not all at once. Good. I wouldn't have trusted all at once. She pulled me in, and I let myself stay there, in the plain, unspectacular truth of it. Not the version anyone else had tried to write for us, just the one that actually happened. I woke up looking for the person I assumed should be there. I found the one who actually was. Would you forgive someone for showing up only after the damage was already done? Or does when someone shows up tell you everything you need to know about who they really are? And if the person who stayed wasn't the one you expected, would you have the nerve to choose them anyway, in front of everyone who thought they already knew how your story was supposed to end?